Hi everyone, it's Rev Kimmy.
And I'm Dr. G, and thank you for tuning in to our podcast. We've got some new material for you today. We are going to talk about recent developments in Brian Kohberger's defense case. And what we're talking about is which case, Kimmy?
Yeah, Brian Kohberger.
What's another name for it?
Idaho 4, there's a lot.
Oh, yeah. Idaho 4, yeah. And what we're talking about, folks, is the 4 college students who were murdered up in Warsaw, Idaho, up in the upstate Idaho, back in November 2022. Okay. And I don't really track these cases. It's kind of a busy time of the year for me, but you keep up on them, and you came to me and you said, oh, check this out. What did you find today is going on in that case? You're the paralegal, so let us...
Well, you're the professor. Okay. Well, they're talking about setting aside their allegations. The counsel, defense and prosecution are both agreeing to disagree, or I should say their disagreements they're agreeing upon, just agreeing that he didn't stalk, just dropping the issue and moving forward. Also, which is a technicality, I see that. I'm a trial specialist. We see that in civil law. They just move on from an issue because it's not real big or important, so they move on from it. It doesn't mean it didn't occur.
Yeah.
You guys need to go back to the first Brian Kohberger case, the episode that we have, and it blew up. I mean, a lot of people listened. I had over, how many did I have, Dr. G? I had how many true prophetic facts that I had given to...
you shared over 35, and that was just in that one email. There was like 29, and then I counted some unique ones in other emails, and
and I had
35.
I was directly tipping with my prophetic gifts. What was it, Chief Fry or Captain Fry, Colonel Willis, as well as the FBI. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and put up my email evidence of what it is that I tipped to law enforcement, of whom I just named. It's going to be found on the comments to my pinned docuseries on my Facebook, and it's Kimmy, K-Y-M-M-I, Bloomberg, B-L-O-O-M-B-E-R-G. So I'm only going to mention one thing from this, from my email in a few minutes, dated November 23rd, 2022. Now, as you guys all remember, Brian Kohberger was not arrested till December 30th, 2022. So I'm going to be sharing some emails here soon. So the developments are, they're setting aside, counsel have agreed to go ahead and set aside that Brian Kohberger did not stalk any of the victims, as well as, what was the other thing that they're also saying that, he had to come forward and he gave his official alibi. Yes. If we could call it an alibi.
Yeah,
I don't know if you guys have heard about it.
We misheard all these podcasters and talk show pundits and whatnot, that not only was the defense asserting that Kohberger did not stalk them, but the prosecutor has come on and said, no, he didn't stalk them. And I recall when you first pointed this case out to me, having worked for, essentially NSA for 10 years, I went to the FCC's Federal Communications Commission's website, looked up tower structures and plotted them on the map for that area, and they were talking about pings on his phone and where he was, and he was so far away from his apartment, which you said he lived in an apartment. And
I think it was 4 miles away. I'm a little rusty with the facts of this case, to be honest with you, but I think, as I recall,
across the
4
border,
miles.
Across the border, 10 miles as the crow flies. And he went 10, 20, 30 miles out of his way. And but it will come back to that both the prosecution and defense have said no, stalking is a non-issue. We're not doing it. But
so just because of the fact, let me tell you, because I am in trial specialist, what I do for a living, right?
Yeah,
Paralegal. Just because they've come to an agreement to set something aside doesn't mean that he didn't stalk him.
That's true.
They're just agreeing to set it aside, and they're not going to make it an issue.
Yeah, they're trying to throw the phone records out, the pings, even though his vehicle is spotted on camera. But they're trying to throw the phone records out because he shut the phone off. But I know from the cases I've worked, for the TV series and all that, and working with the detectives from New York, we had a case, I'll not say where it was, but it was central United States, where the individual's on camera in a pizza place, a pizza establishment. We have eyewitnesses, but then once he's recovered, all the cache, the P list, all those files on his phone show that there was a photograph taken with his phone 2 miles away when he's supposed to be in the bar. So I learned right then and there that where the phone is not necessarily where the person is. And what did you share with me today?
Just long story short, I discovered this case. Was watching an old interview online. I won't say what TV show. And they were discussing this particular case. A man, Doug Stewart, 29, he was serving life in prison for the murder of his wife, Venus, 8 years ago. But police never found her body. So I guess apparently he drummed up this idea because he was bored in his prison cell. I have an epiphany moment. Oh my gosh, why didn't I think of this sooner? I'm bored. I'm in jail forever, a life sentence. I know what I'll do. I'm going to tell the police where her body is, and I'm going to bargain chip that I get an Xbox for my prison cell. Yeah. Okay, if anybody doesn't know, I'm INTJ personality type, which is dry humor, and that is my dry humor. Yeah, sarcasm intended.
Not a new pinochle deck or
truly.
Backgammon board. He went big time there.
You guys, seriously, Google it. It's a Daily Mail.
Unbelievable.
Yep, UK version. He led him to her body. Yep. And when I was reading this today, it says his friend Ricky Spencer told police that Doug had convinced him to impersonate Doug to help him cover up the crime. Now that's when I went, oh my gosh. What he did was he hired a friend to create an alibi to pretend to be him during the time when he was murdering his wife. Yeah. Now, so the point of bringing this up, talking about Brian Kohberger, I don't care that he's driving his car and he's allegedly, I'm looking at the moon and the stars and it's such a beautiful night, and quite frankly I think that it was overcast. By the way, you wouldn't have been able to see anything. But in any event, just because he's saying that he's the one, his phone is pinging and showing in a different area, but you know what, it doesn't mean he's the one driving the car with the phone. Does it? This case of Ricky Spencer pretending to be Doug Stewart is evidence. I mean, it's just enough to make you wonder, well, it doesn't prove that Brian Kohberger was driving the car at the time. Yeah. Does it? No, it doesn't. So...
yeah, they're going to, if they're smart, they're going to try and argue some of the same points we just did, that where the phone is not necessarily the person.
So now
somebody else had his phone.
So what I'm going to do now is I don't believe
it. The car was seen there. The car's on video. And so that takes care of the stalking. Now,
that's his alibi. So I am going to share
all kinds of information online about the stalking stuff.
I'm going to share the alibi. I did talk to the police about the alibi. The Lord gave me information about that, whom I wrote to Fry Wills and FBI, my email, and I CC'd my commander of, he's a commander of a detectives division at a major Los Angeles law enforcement agency. He's confidential. I'm not going to say who he is. And I also CC'd some other homicide detectives at the time. So anyway, so I have that redacted if you go and look at it on my Facebook. Okay, so I have a lot of points on here. I'm just going to read one of them, which is I'm finally getting my affirmation because he's come out about his official alibi. So I said with the person who murdered the girls, and the boy, right, the gentleman, I said he has no alibi. No one can vouch for him. When you catch up with him and interview him, he will have no alibi. Mm-hmm. When I finally got my affirmation, I wrote this to the police November 23rd, 2022. It's been a long time. To get my affirmation on that.
Idaho law requires them to disclose alibi. Why didn't he bring this forward sooner?
Because he has a strategy from the start. He always wants to stay in control. Okay, that's who Brian Kohberger is. That's why he waived his right to a speedy trial as well, to stay in control, and also to have more time. He wouldn't want this to be speedy. He's got to come up with good ideas about things.
Yeah, they haven't talked much about it. I wonder if they're going to pursue the death penalty in his case.
Yeah, they are. That's why, he's supposed to have a dual counsel. I haven't followed this case in a while, but I know because of the death penalty on the plate, that they went ahead and appointed, they were supposed to, when I stopped reading about the case, they had appointed two counsel for that because of that fact. But I want to say that I don't care. We could come up with a lot of scenarios, as we just named one, from using the other case, that it just because the phone is in someone's car, his alleged car, and driving around, doesn't mean he's the one driving the car and with the phone. But I want to say that if I was a jury member on Brian Kohberger's case, hearing about the fact that Kaylee's dog's Kaylee's dog's hair was found in Brian Kohberger's bed. The police have a strand of the dog's hair. That's enough for me. I don't care what story he's giving with his alibi and this, and or striking the stalking issue. That's enough for me to know that he's done it. Of course, in the DNA match, in which I wanted to share with you guys, I've never, and I failed to mention on our last episode on Brian Kohberger, we named 35 true facts that the Lord told me about their suspect, and I put it in writing, and I forgot to mention, and I want to mention now, about something that I failed to mention that was pretty important. This is I will also put this email out for the public to read. It's going to be in the comments to my pinned docuseries, as I said. It's dated Wednesday, December 7th, 2022 at 8:29 a.m.
Yeah, they didn't arrest him till the 30th.
Yeah, they did not arrest him until the 30th. And they did not dig in the trash until December 27th, 2022. So here's part of it. And again, this is to Chief Fry, Wills, is it Wills?
Wills, yeah.
And the FBI.
Yeah.
Okay, here's what I said.
Wills, folks. He's Colonel Wills, the director of Idaho State Police.
And who is Chief Fry?
Chief Fry is the police chief in Moscow PD, where the homicides occurred.
And who's the FBI? Just kidding. Okay, so here's what I said. I'm going to read parts of this. Okay, it's verbatim, guys. I was pretty angry. Okay, So you need to keep that in mind. I got really, 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 really mad with regards. You guys need to go listen to the Stockton serial killer. I was pretty pissed off with that one. And so I used my gifts against the killer. I felt he was being unfair, so would I. So I used my gifts and I tipped off the chief over there on that case. You guys can go read the evidence on my Facebook and go listen to that episode. But anyway, that was just as strong as Brian Koberger's case. And here's what I wrote. I would outsmart him. 2 can play his game. I would see if he has siblings nearby and go take their trash when it is legal on the curb, sidewalk, or street, then run DNA on appropriate trash items. There would be a percentage match, right? DNA, of course. Remember, detectives were very creative to know who BTK was. They brilliantly affirmed it was Dennis Radar via lab tests of his daughter by going to her doctor's office. It was an OBGYN. They got into some lab tests, and they were able to confirm that it was Dennis Radar. So I said, go reach for that man's DNA. If I was a cop, I can tell you, I'd dig so deep, and I would get in the trash with his parents' trash, or his siblings' trash for sure. I'd clearly outsmart him, and I can tell you that. I encourage you to only believe his DNA, he didn't do it, and that, his word that he didn't do it. Or get a court order to go into his dorm or apartment to collect his DNA. And God kept showing me he's in a dorm or an apartment. He was by a college. I was able to see that at university.
What day did you send this?
So as a reminder, this is Wednesday, December 7th, 2022 at 8:29 a.m. This went to the FBI, and this went to the chief, and so state level, Idaho. So everyone had it December 7th, 2022. And you have to remember that this commander of a detectives division of a major Los Angeles law enforcement agency is CC'd on this. They can see the person, as well as their homicide detectives are all CC'd on this. They've already had an intro email from me and another one with 35 points, okay, that were accurate. They're not going to ignore my emails when I have this reference. If only I could tell you who he was, you would go, oh my gosh. So anyway, so he was on December 27th, 2022, the cops got in the trash of his parents' home, okay? And they did that DNA comparison as I had written. And then they compared it to the murder site, the DNA they found at the murder site, and found that there was a match. And based on that, they made the arrest on December 30th, 2022. Did they listen to me? I don't know. But what matters is I did say it on December 7th, 2022.
Yeah, you said that the Holy Spirit had revealed to you that they needed to go through the trash to secure DNA evidence that would lead them to a suspect. And that's is exactly
what they did.
What happened.
And how often do we hear them routinely do this? We don't.
Yep, and it's perfectly legal without a warrant. Greenwood versus California.
Yeah, when trash is on the
Supreme Court case that covers that.
Yeah, when the trash is on, your trash is taken onto the public street, the public sidewalk. It now is possession of, they're free to do it. They're free to look through the trash. They don't need a warrant.
Yep. It's considered, you disposed of it, you have no more claim to it.
Yeah, if you guys want to look up the case law, it's California versus Greenwood, 486, U.S. 35, 1988 case.
Yeah. Okay, so it's interesting. As I was reading that, you told me about this. I went online and started looking at it, and they kept talking about, and I was just shocked that the prosecution said, "Okay, fine, he didn't stalk," and that's because the defense seemed to be positioning themselves on the field that stalking was going to be his motive, and if they could get rid of motive, then our client has no reason to kill. But here's the problem, folks.
Well, to help with the simple thing, like I said, well, then how did Kaylee's dog's hair get in your bed?
Yeah,
Mr.
Murphy's
Koberger.
hair, the dog Murphy. Yeah. And here's the problem. Number one, stalking is a behavior, not a motive. There are 5 types of stalking: the rejected stalker, the resentful stalker, the intimacy-seeking stalker, the incompetent suitor, and the predatory stalker. Those are behaviors, not motive. Now, here's the second thing, folks, and I can see, I'm not going to comment, I'll let you explain this one. When you look at Idaho Statutes Title 18, Crimes and Punishments, Chapter 40, Homicide, so that's Title 18, Chapter 40, Section 18-4003, you see the definition for murder, the degrees of murder, and then if you roll over, now this isn't California, it's not Minnesota, it's Idaho, so keep it in context. Idaho Criminal Jury Instructions for First Degree Murder, Section 704 Alpha A. And when you look through it, I'm not going to read it to you. You can go check it out. ICJI, Idaho Criminal Jury Instruction 704 Alpha A. Nowhere in there does it say you have to prove motive. The only time you have to prove motive, folks, is for movies and TV. All you have to prove is that the person was there and they did it. This concept of means, motive, and opportunity is really good for television, but not the courtroom. So,
yeah, I mean, if you think
we
about it,
get rid of stalking, we get rid of motive. Why would the prosecution just say,
don't forget his DNA is found on the knife.
Yeah. Why would the prosecution say, okay,
the cover for the knife,
we're
right?
We're not going to do the stalking thing,
right?
Why would
The
they
cover
do
for
that?
the knife has his DNA on it in the bed underneath the body.
Yep.
One of the bodies.
Yep, the snap on the sheath.
Okay,
The
so
K-bar
explain
sheath,
that
yeah.
one. Oh,
Yeah.
well, let's
I
come up with a few
loaned
things.
my knife to a friend.
I lost it. Somebody stole it from me.
Yeah.
But then again, we fall back on let me just name one piece of evidence: the dog. So then, how did the dog's hair get in your bed, at home, your apartment? I'm just to name one from the argument's sake.
Yeah, and besides some articles say animal hair and animal hair. Some say animal DNA. Some actually
No,
say
it says
that
blantonly. It says
that it's
the dog's hair. Yeah.
Murphy's hair, the
Yeah.
dog, the pet dog.
So I think what they're trying to do at this point, the next move is they're trying to transfer it like any other high-profile case. They're trying to change the jurisdiction, trying to move it like they did on Kristen Smart's case, in hopes that nobody's heard of it.
Yeah, and they got like we said, they got the vehicle on camera, coming and going and in and out all night and whatever. So if you haven't heard this, folks, you might want to sit down, because I don't know if it's more unbelievable or more laughable. What did you find that they're giving for an alibi? Now, keep in mind, they're saying he wasn't stalking them and that he wasn't driving all over around stalking them all night. Why was he out there driving around, Rev Kimmy?
He said he was looking at the stars and the moon, and sometimes he goes for runs and hiking.
At what time of the day?
Middle of the night.
4 a.m.?
Middle of the
and
night.
He's out running,
All night.
and he's out looking at the stars
Because
and
he's
moon.
busy, and that's the only time he's able to squeeze it in.
Interesting alibi.
In quotes. Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't work for me. It just doesn't. It just does. It's not an alibi. Like the judge, would the judge say? He was saying that's a partial alibi. It's not an alibi. You guys can Google it and listen to the judge in the courtroom. But he was even poo-pooing alleged alibi of, out looking at the stars, driving around looking at the stars and the moon. And that's the worst type of alibi I've ever heard.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, you're just because your phone, like I said, is pinging here and there over on the moon because you were looking at the moon. Like it's not going to work for me because there's no evidence you're the one driving the car with your phone. So I don't care what the phone is saying. For me, if I was a jury member, sorry, that's not going to work for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep, and
how about you, Dr. G?
Absolute phenomenons can happen with cell phone towers and service, and you hit roaming, and we've actually seen that. I got the phone record back one time, and we were still in our home state, but the phone records apparently showed that somehow I was in New Jersey.
Oh, yeah.
In New Jersey, and an hour later I was in Nevada or New Mexico or something like that.
Absolutely impossible.
It's like, thank you, Scotty, for beaming me up.
Yeah, and who did an investigation to even believe such a thing?
Oh, my goodness.
It's impossible. Hello, are you thinking?
Yeah, alien abduction. There you go. There you go. Advertisement for Blink 182 and their song. Oh, goodness. But all things aside and all laughing matters, that's the news on this one, folks. The alibi is I was out driving around looking at the stars and moon. I was not stalking them. And think of how much, as far as, a guarantee a speedy trial.
Well, and then don't forget they had social media where Brian Kohberger showed that he was liking the photos of the girls on Instagram or TikTok, one of the social medias, and then all platforms, and then also he messaged Kaylee.
Yeah.
So because her father came out and showed all of us on TV,
and proving.
So because they're setting aside the stalking issue, doesn't mean it didn't occur.
Setting aside stalking is setting aside motive, at least the spin that the defense is putting on it. And prosecution does not have to prove motive. They just saved a week, 2 weeks of experts back and forth on the stand testifying, and maps and pictures trying to convince the jury that, yes, in fact, this is his phone, and they don't need any of that to prove the homicide, according to Idaho criminal jury instructions.
Yeah, so it's smart just to agree to it, to
Cut to the chase.
I see that a lot in civil law.
Is his DNA there? Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That is a normal thing that we see in civil law as well.
Yeah, and folks, that dog Murphy, his hair was there. It's his DNA. We got blood in different places, potentially other human hairs as well. Boy, that's going to be a tough one.
And then don't forget about the witness in the house, which doesn't work for me. Okay, she saw someone with bushy brown eye, bushy eyebrows. Yeah. And that's all she could testify against. And quite frankly, it doesn't work for me. If I was a juror, would it for you, Dr. G? No.
Eyewitnesses are horrid.
We all hope to have bushy eyebrows.
Terrible.
Everyone has fake eyebrows, is what I'm trying to say. I mean, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, it's going to be interesting to see. What do you think they're going to be able to have the transferred? The trial, I do.
Oh, change of venue?
I think so.
They'll probably get a change of venue, but they need to get on with the show.
Well, he's stall tacting on purpose.
So sad.
He's doing this on purpose. He's all about control. All about control. Well, anyway, is there anything else you want to mention, Dr. G?
No, just keep track of the case. We're seeing classic strategies back and forth with the
counsel,
defense counsel, and the prosecutor's office. Some really good evidence there, and keep in mind they don't have to prove motive. So stalking's a non-issue. We're going to get right to the evidence. They are going to save so much time and taxpayer dollars in getting justice for these 4 families. And they're a smart move on the prosecution's part. They're letting the defense take the wind out of their own sails, really.
So if you guys don't know, it's the first time listening, I have prophetic gifts for ministry as a Christian ordained reverend. I've been in ministry, oh my gosh, over 30 years. I used to do hospital ministry, stuff like that, and those gifts so happen to work on missing person cases and homicide cases. So it's cops that started me helping law enforcement and working on such cases since 1997. I ask you, if you want to hear about that, you could hear about the first case, Kristen Smart, from 1997. Go find that one. And please, go listen to our first episode on Brian Koberger. It's Season 2, Episode 7. The Idaho 4, Brian Koberger, tipster, behind the scenes. And we thank you all so very much for listening, and we are going to talk to you again on our next episode.
Thank you for listening, and make sure you follow us, click follow, and check out Kimmy's
And tell your friends and family.
Facebook. Yep.
And go look at the evidence on my Facebook.
And feel free to reach out to us at our email address, revkimmydrg@gmail.com. Thank you.